Graeme Connors has been a musical artist for over 40 years and he has released 19 albums as well as winning quite a few awards along the way. He has not only written songs for his own recordings, but for other artists as well, including the late Slim Dusty. Those songs are now collected in his book, My Lyrical Life. I'm going to ask him a lot about the book and he's going to hold it up. Thanks, Graeme. Hello.
Well, it seemed the appropriate occasion to do that, and brazen self-promoter that I've become.
Well, I love the fact that you have a book to hold up because, these days artifacts and related to music are not necessarily easy to come by. So we'll start by asking you, when did the idea for doing a book come to you?
Well, Sophie, it was during COVID, to be honest. You get in that situation where some people found COVID very stimulating in terms of recording and songwriting, and I was sort of the opposite. I'd go into the studio to do some work and found myself really looking backwards rather than forwards. And then it occurred to me that maybe this was a message that I need to do a bit of work on my back catalogue, because all my career has always been a case. When you get 20 albums, let me tell you, you're always looking forward. It's just that's the way that you work. And so the ambition is, a new song, better than the last, an album of songs that somehow continues your story. But the realization that there was no audience waiting, in terms of a live performance, I think it stymied my creative spirit a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I started to look back into my back catalogue, I recognized there was a really intense period in the 80s in which I was a bit of a gun for hire songwriter, living in Sydney, doing any artist that was looking for songs I'd be trying to pitch. I hope you can't hear my little puppy dog in the background.
I can, but I love dogs, so it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
Charlie. And Charlie has yet to realize that he's not the star of the show. He's only a support artist.
Dogs are always the star of the show, Graeme.
You let him in here, no one would look at me anymore. So I'm just going to keep him outside.
What sort of dog is he, I should ask?
He's a cross between a poodle and a Pomeranian. So, and I have to tell you, I had no intentions of another dog because we had three dogs over 17 years, and they were fabulous companions and they had a great life. But when they all passed, and they all passed in the sort of a 3 year window, but we'd had them 17 years, like the oldest was. I said, no more dogs, too hard on the heart, that one. And besides, when we tour, I really don't want to have to be worried about a little fretting companion with the neighbors or something. So my children, who obviously don't listen to anything I say, in August last year turned up with Charlie. Now Charlie's like this big. All my other dogs have been fairly robust, Jack type dogs, running, and well, this is a house dog. This is the sort of thing that Paris Hilton would have had in her handbag. So, and I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not. I do not. This does not compute. I said no more dogs, but Charlie just wound me around his little paw eventually, and
I do that.
they do that. They do that. So now it's a case of who's going to go first. Where we'll probably have another 15-year relationship here. I hope I hope selfishly that I don't go first, but I'd leave him without someone to tell what to do. So anyhow, we get off the track with these
But
dogs.
I will ask before we go further, do we call a Pomeranian poodle a pomoodle? I don't know, because there's a cavoodle and a spoodle. I don't know. What's a pom?
It's a pom poo.
Pom-
So it's
I
not,
should have thought of that. Okay.
not very dignified, but that's what I've been told. That's how.
Pompoo. All right. Well, your Pompoo can bark in the background anytime he likes.
So getting back to the book of lyrics, I started looking for some of those old songs that recorded because as I say, when you're always powering ahead, um, the archive can get a bit messy.
Mhm.
And I was in that state. A lot of those songs were recorded on vinyl and then CD, cassette, and they were just stored away in boxes elsewhere. And so I started this, and then somewhere along that trail, I started making notes about my life in music because I realized it's actually 50 years this December since I signed on to this crazy game.
Right.
December 1973, I left my hometown of Mackay, and the first show I did, I mean, talk about the lucky breaks. The first show I did, I opened as part of the Sherbet Christmas concert in the Capitol Theatre in Sydney. I was on first for like, 10 minutes. And then Richard Clapton came on for probably half an hour. Then the La-Di-Dahs for probably 45 minutes, and then Sherbet, the main event. I was spoiled. I really was. To start at that level, I thought my trajectory was to the moon straight away. And I had some really good years, and I guess I wanted to capture that more for my grandchildren
Mhm.
than than any other reason. So I started jotting down notes and anecdotes and stories from the road, and it was just getting bigger. And then the songs started to creep in. This is the first one I wrote, and this is the next one, and this is the first one I recorded, and this is how it led to this. Before I knew it, I had two songs and about 60 pages of biographical material. And Lynn said to me, "Listen, the way you're going to be competing with the Bible for sight. So you're going to have to make a call. Is this a book of lyrics that you want to just collect, or is it going to be your life story?" I chose the book of lyrics because I recognize that my life story is within those lyrics. The songs that I've written. Um, Generally, I can trace very clearly and very easily what I was going through at that point in time. So then this process, digging up the past, I had from north forward, it was very easy. They were
Mhm.
all CD. Anything prior to that, I had to use Discogs and various other to find songs that I'd written for other artists.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was a real voyage of discovery. So there's a big miscellaneous section at the book where that were recorded by other people, and those other people, as you mentioned, Slim Dusty, Diana Corcoran, record Nev Nichols, Darcy Year, Slim, as I said, Slim, John English. It just there are a lot of songs in there that I Reg Pool. I'd sort of forgotten that
Mhm.
that, that I'd written them. That sounds absurd, doesn't it? But the fact that you're so focused with forward movement.
Well, I think it's also it shows that you're adept at letting go of what you've written and handing it over to someone else, or even recording it yourself. And I should also say at the top, I said 19 albums. You said 20. Obviously, my info was out of date. So 20 albums. Um,
20, I think, includes the collector's piece, which came at the very beginning of my career, called "And When Morning Comes."
right.
And when morning comes, really poetic, doesn't it? But that was a great gift to me because that concert that I did in Sydney with Sherbet, the A&R department of Festival Records happened to be there, and obviously someone was intrigued enough to ask me to come down and see how it could go. So that led to a recording contract, and then I toured with all these incredible artists, from Bill Cosby, Dave Allen, Chris Christopherson, Rita Coolidge, and Chris, the most generous man I'd ever met. He took me in the studio and produced 4 songs for me before he left Australia, and that became the sort of the beginnings of that album.
Mhm.
Peter Dawkins, Richard Batchen, these are really top-line Australian producers from that period.
Mhm.
And some of the great, all the great session players in Sydney appear on that first album. Um, and once again, I thought, man, this is it. How easy is this? You leave Mackay, and within a couple of years, you're a star. But it wasn't to be, because in recognition that the album it didn't really represent me, I guess. It was just a really good collection of songs,
Mhm.
but it didn't have that individuality that you have to have if you're going to make a dent on the soundscape. You know what I mean?
Mm.
That didn't happen to me until North, when the songs were uniquely mine. I had written them all. They talked of my life, my experience, and I guess I was always, if I could grab the young Graeme Connors and shake him and say, you should have been more confident about who you are. But when you come from the country and you're in the city and everyone sort of like looks bigger than they are, you had a tendency, well, I had a tendency to sort of like, oh dear, I've got to try and sound like them, whoever them was, the hits of the day. And so a lot of my early songwriting was trying to capture the sound of the artist that I was writing for.
Right.
It was not about my personal story.
Mm.
It was about their story and me. And so it was easy. We've done us proud for Slim. I never performed that for years and years. My mother just loved that song. And she always said to me, you should record it. And I'm like, no, I think, I wrote it for Slim and it's really his song. Well, eventually I did record it. And sadly, she was no longer with us when that occurred. But it was one of those things that I did my version of it, and I felt comfortable in that skin.
Mhm. So, in talking about writing for other artists, is there like a different intention when you've done that? You know, it's for someone else and you're almost in a different mindset, because I imagine it's partly working off the instinct of what's going to be right for that artist. It's not necessarily a technical thing where you think, all right, well, it's for Slim, I'm going to write it this way. Or maybe it is.
It is to me. I mean, my relationship with Slim was primarily over the telephone. He'd ring when he was making a record. The first song that I'd co-written with Doug Trevor was "I'm Married to My Bulldog Mac," and that set a sort of a precedent that every time Slim was looking for a trucking song, he'd give me a call. So I had this long list of, My Old Midnight Special and Me, Billy Nudgel, all these trucking theme songs. The only song of all those that I think that I did draw from the wellspring of my own experience was a song called Dieseling Dreams. And that was about a kid traveling with his dad for the first time in a truck. And I had translated my experiences with my father. He was a guard in the railway. And on occasional weekends, we'd join him in the rail motors up the Pioneer Valley. And so it was sort of like, it was just substitute the train for the truck,
Right.
and same emotions of a father and son doing that. But a lot of the others were really songs that I tried to write that would be as suitable to Slim as possible, you know. And that was really the modus operandi for most of the songwriting I was doing during that period, even to the point where musically, I'd always have an eye in the direction, or an ear in the direction of what the artist was always trying to push forward, mind you, but trying to find something new,
Mm-hmm.
but within the parameters of that artist's style.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, moving forwards, and you've just mentioned it, used that term again. You're always looking ahead, and that's partly why you've forgotten some of the songs you had written. So that suggests to me that you're curious about what's next. You're still passionate about what you're doing, and there's always that quest for something or a new story to tell. I guess not necessarily, oh, I could do it better, but actually, there's no finite amount of what I can do here. There is always something left to achieve.
I'm always trying to find something new in, because at the end of the day, we listen to the world around us. We listen to music, we listen to conversation, we watch, we're aware of changes, of the political landscape. You want to record your moment in time. in a song. That's really, I think, what most writers are looking towards. Well, I don't know, but for me particularly, I want to be able to say, uh, in a universal way, though, I don't want it to be anchored to a time and space, but you'd be able to look at that and say, that's where the world was at that point in time. That's where people, that's where society was. Then there's that, that's where Graeme was, you know what I mean? What he was going through personally. There's all these things that writing is a beautiful way to chronicle and capture the times. And you look at the great writers, whether we're talking Bob Dylan or Chris Christopherson, they, they marked their work marked periods of transition for the arts in many ways. It's really, that's the best. Randy Newman, I always enjoyed Randy Newman's music because he was unafraid to use the language of the day, whether it, I mean, he was the first, let's say, what was he, what would you call him, singer-songwriter, who started throwing in expletives, but they were perfectly placed. It was like the language of the everyday man. And you'd be going where other people, I would find it really annoying, you know, I mean, because it was just they could have found a better word if they wanted, but they just choose to use an expletive. Well, Randy, his expletives were bang on. It created a character. The singer that, because he was, as the singer, he was a character in the song, whether it be, you know, rednecks or whatever that was to be. Um, I love that in him. John Prine was another uh, real favorite of mine as a songwriter. And those songs to me capture the 90s, the early 2000s, and further down, you know.
Mhm. Were there any songs you were really pleased to rediscover when you thought, oh, I don't remember writing that, but gee, I'm loving myself sick about it.
There was one song that I wrote for Melinda Schneider called Damn Love. Now, I knew I'd done it, but it was like, wow, I really liked that. It had a sort of a bluesy edge to it. And Melinda's recording was really, really good. Like she just interpreted it in a way that felt like she got the song, you know, really well. The other one, there was a rodeo song called For the Love of the Game, which Reg Poole recorded. And seriously, I had forgotten I'd written that song. And when I came across it, I'm thinking, wow, Star Trucker by Slim. You know, what was I on? I knew that he loved, I knew that he loved Star Trek. And so I sort of thought, how could I combine Star Trek and a trucking album, right? So it's like, uh,
That's gold.
well, it's hilarious because he's like, beam me up, Scotty. I'm ready to ride to take my place at the helm of the Enterprise. And it's about this guy who's out on the road. You know, he thinks he thinks he's the ant's pants as far as the truck is concerned, but he's gone loopy. He's had too long a drive, and so he's out there. It's very funny. And as I say, I thought, was I there? I can't remember.
Maybe it was just the lights on the hill transfixing the driver.
Right. Well, it was certainly it, it happened quickly, that song, I remember, because he was in the studio, and Rod Coe was a great friend of mine, in as much as he would always give me the deadline. He would always say, now, Graeme, you know, we're going in the studio on Monday, right? So it's like, if you haven't got this song here by Friday, it's not
Right.
heard, you know. So that meant I was busy doing other things. So I would allocate Friday to write the song. So I'd get up at like 5:30 in the morning and power through, and then do a quick demo and send it off and hope for the best. And and that was when I remember Star Trek. I was laughing my head off the whole time I was writing it, thinking,
I'm going to immediately go and listen to this after we finish the interview, Graeme.
yeah, well, it's one of those little gems from the past, you know, that I was very happy to find.
Obviously, you like a deadline. Therefore, if you were being set that way.
Love it. I am lazy bones. I'm Mr. Lazy Bones. Everyone thinks that I'm like, man, look at his output. You know, he's had an album a year for the last 10 years. He must be really focused. you ask my wife, it's just like I sit around doing nothing for ages and ages and ages. I think I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. That's what I think I'm doing. But essentially, then it becomes if you haven't got it done by next Thursday,
Right.
guess, guess what? It's not going to get done. So all of a sudden, there's this mammoth, uh, you know, explosion of energy, and the job's done. So
But the thinking time was necessary because otherwise, arguably, you couldn't have got it done in that time.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Sophie. So thank you for your support. I
No,
appreciate.
I'm a big believer in letting things marinate in the brain,
Yeah.
and that procrastination is often thinking time, and it's not a conscious process, a
No,
creative process necessarily. So,
I I always say that I spend more time sleeping when I'm writing because I
mm,
do. If I can't get anything happening, I lie down on the couch.
mhm.
Inevitably, I've got a pad and a pencil. Next thing I know, oh my, then all of a sudden the next line will happen. It's like a jigsaw, You've worked out musically where everything's going. You can hear it all in your head, but you've got all these missing pieces. And
Mhm.
sleep is the greatest blessing that we've been given is when we go to sleep, our subconscious mind churns away and does all the work for us. And that's the miracle of creativity is
Mhm.
that you can stand here and labor and sweat and do all that sort of stuff and end up with nothing that has any magic. It's there,
Mhm.
but it just lacks that. When you go and have a lie down, a little siesta, bing, it all comes. Anyway,
There's a lot to be said for a nap. Yes.
advocating, that's the method I use and it works for me.
Now, this is potentially a tricky question to ask you, but out of the songs that you put into the book, did a favorite emerge?
Uh, well, I'm going to say that there's 5 lyrics in here of works in progress that have yet to be released. And by nature, they're sort of like big favorites for me because they're little children that have yet to be born
Right.
and potential has yet to be realized.
Mhm.
And that will be happening next year. I'll be in the studio to to do a it well may be my final album because the way albums are these days, it's like everyone just does a couple of tracks and puts them on up online in some way, and it's a funny old game now. It's I love CDs. I mean, I love books. You can see what behind. I mean, it's like I'm a I'm a letter writer in the age of emails, and now I've sort of given up writing letters, so I have paper and pen, but essentially I've become a traitor to the old way, and I do it all on email, and music I suppose will become a bit the same. It'll rather be ephemeral. It'll be out there as it exists as an audible thing or a visual, but you won't be holding it in your hand and say, which I
Oh,
still.
I guess, people still like artifacts, which is what we're seeing with the
Look,
re-emergence of vinyl. And so I think, some people will still want CDs, but albums are so wonderful because there has been so many lovely albums released this year, for example. I think, well, those individually, the songs on them are great, but hearing them all together in the way the artist intended as a bigger arc of a
I,
story is
I'm
beautiful.
I'm with you 100% because when I'm putting an album together, I'm very, very alert and aware that I don't repeat a theme, that I uh, don't duplicate a musical feel. It's like I'm really conscious of okay, this song I may love this song, but it doesn't belong on this album. It's got to, and that
Mm-hmm.
has happened for me in the past when I had North. They were like a pretty much a clean set of songs that came in its entirety. But I had leftovers that found their way into South of These Days. South These Days, when I wrote all that, there were leftovers there that found their way into Tropicali. So it was like Tropicali then found its way into The Return. There's these series of songs that don't belong on this project, Doesn't
Mm.
they're not I don't love them, but they just don't. I don't feel they balance out. You know.
Mm. In surveying your output as a songwriter, do you think that there's been a one motivation or one surpassing motivation, be it to tell a story, whether it's to document experiences, to connect with an audience? Do you feel for you that there is one powerful motivation above all others?
My motivation was always to tell the Australian story, to speak, to bring the Australian experience into music. That was always where I was coming from. So um, I was a bit out of step with that, and then along came, say, John Williamson and people like that who did lead the way in his own inimitable voice, different to mine. Our vocabulary is very different. Um, James Blundell was an early voice that sort of made it Australian without being quite so obviously so.
Mm.
So there were artists, the Bushwhackers. I mean, I loved the Bushwhackers, but it wasn't my voice, and my voice is the sort of North voice. You know what I mean? It's like the probably not as Australian that that was going about at the time. It was a bit different to that,
Mm.
but it was unmistakably so, because all the places I mentioned, the directions I sung about, whatever happened to be, the experiences were uniquely Australian experiences, and that album particularly. I received a lot of mail from people who travelled to Australia and purchased the CDs or vinyl even upon departing, and then
Mm.
home to their home country, England or America or Canada, and took it as a souvenir of their trip, because it felt let the cane fields burn just seemed to be. That happens in the South. In America they have cane, and over in the Caribbean and things like that, but the Australian experience somehow is really captured in that song.
Mm. And I should say, we're talking about CDs, and also mentioning streaming. You are a heavily streamed artist on on Spotify. We can see the figures. One of your songs has 1.8 million streams. Yes, there are several of them that have hundreds of thousands of streams. So, yeah, you better check your figures, Graeme.
I'm sorry, it happens out there in the universe that I do not inhabit. I find the whole streaming thing so weird.
Well, look, it is, but people are finding your songs on streaming.
So thankful that they are, because that's the way forward. There's no doubt about it, and there's no point me bemoaning the fact that I used to love signing an album and handing it over, but that's the way it is. Streaming is the way it is, and I mean, I find myself now, if someone tells me about a new album, a new artist, I also get online and have a go. So it's like I'm also giving that artist 0.00013 of a cent.
But people will have the chance to see you live in person performing these songs. That they have had the chance this year, but you are heading for the Tamworth Country Music Festival with a show. I'm really curious as to how on earth you put together a set list for this show, given how many songs you've written.
Well, it's really, I've broken it two shows. On the 21st, I'm doing Graeme Connors, the songwriter, at the Capitol Theatre, isn't it? The Capitol Theatre in Tamworth, and that will focus. I'll probably have a guest musician or two, but it'll be really a case of me telling the story, singing the songs, and I've got 200 and how many here? 260 or 50 or whatever it is songs to choose from. And then on the Friday, which is Australia Day, I've got the big band show, and they're my favorite musicians on stage. And of course, we will focus on the bigger songs that I don't say need the band, but we're always designed to have a lot of great players up on stage. So that gives me two totally separate repertoires too. And I know there are going to be people who are like, why didn't you do the Ringer and the Princess at the big band show? And you're like, well, it's sort of, it belongs in the other basket. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. Yes, it is. It's a closer, quieter song.
It is, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with the band, and I'm going to have a lot of fun alone. But essentially, the songs that suit the occasion are what I'm focusing on.
Right. Which of course is the compliment you pay to your audience as well. It's not about, oh, I just want to get these particular songs out because they were the hits or whatever it is. It's actually what suits the occasion.
I find if I am meticulous about putting together a set list to play songs that maybe were uh, little gems that didn't quite find the light of day in the time, the audience really finds that appealing, and they go back to the albums to listen a second time. See, when you have an album like The Road Less Traveled, it's like you've got this big hit song, The Road Less Traveled, and it's played and played and played and played. There's what, 11, 12 other songs on that album. You might get Big Jimmy and Felicia Dad might get a bit of a run as well. But it's essentially there are so many others with differing stories to tell, and now is a good time, years past, to be able to bring those songs to life again, and people hear them with fresh ears because it's like, hang on, I've got that album, but I didn't quite get past these 3 or 4 big hits.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you have the Tamworth shows, and then you are working on a new album next year. I imagine there may be some shows attached to that album once it's released too.
We've already got a bit of a grid together for touring. We've got a show in Tasmania, I know, on the 15th of March, the Ides of March. Beware the Ides of March. But
there are any Romans running around? Yes.
so we're taking a group of travelers with us over to Tasmania. We started this prior to COVID with a gentleman called Matt Collins, who was out of Melbourne, and he took artists with their fans, in inverted commas, to exotic locations like South Africa, and there'd be 30 people come with you, and before you know it, you'd be performing in this beautiful location in Cape Town, and then in the middle of a wildlife park up, west of Johannesburg, and then next time you'd be at the top of Victoria Falls performing your songs with this group. Sadly, Matt is no longer with us, but in memory of Matt, we're putting this one together because we had discussed the concept of doing Tasmania in a similar way. So I have really exotic location performances for the group, and then we have a major concert for the public and the group at Launceston on the 15th.
Fantastic. Well, Graeme, much ahead of you. Shows, album, more wonderful songs coming for your audience and your fans, I'm sure. And it has been such a great pleasure to talk to you. And I hope the shows in Tamworth go very well. I may see you around Peel Street. Who knows?
I'm sure we will. That's where I saw you last time, Sophie. So I'm there for the whole week this time, just about. So I'll seek you out.
All right. All right. Thanks so much for your time.
Bye.